Hey everybody, welcome back to the Quest for the Best. It's the podcast from Backlot Banter where we review every single Palme d'Or winner, and today we stay in the country of the Cannes Film Festival because we're talking about Gerard Depardieu's film. No, he's the main star in it.
He's the main star.
He's the main star in the
I
film.
would count that, right?
Yeah,
like you would say, like Tom Cruise's movie, Mission
Yeah.
Impossible, right?
Gerard
Yeah,
Depardieu's
yeah,
movie,
yeah.
directed by Maurice Pilat.
There you go.
That's
Yeah.
Under the Son of Satan. Let's see me screw up yet another French title. Sous le soleil de Satan. I've tried my best. I've tried my best. This is quite the film. Google told me that it was a drama / comedy, and I'm
A comedy?
I'm scratching my head at that one, and so we will have to talk
Having the
about
first
it
half, not gonna lie.
in depth. In depth. But first, I got to remind you what we did last time because, of course, we had our little 2-week feudal Japan excursion in which last time we talked about Akira Kurosawa's Kagemusha. And, well, Kagemusha, we thought, was pretty good. A little bit boring, and so it got a score of 7.6, right around a lot of ties, but 7.6 stands alone at spot number 21, below The Best Intentions and above Titan. So there you have it. Abram, do you have anything to report from our community this week?
I do. We're actually going to stay on the Kagemusha episode here because we got a comment from J Galindo 46 who says the following: as a lactose intolerant, I have to say, line break, milk,
What?
parentheses.
Oh,
Man, I love Kurosawa.
Oh, I see.
M-I-L-K.
Man, I love Kurosawa.
You could also do "Man, I Love Kagemusha" with that. You know,
Oh, true.
that acronym.
Yeah,
But we gave
And
it a
also, shout out to-
7.6.
true. Shout out to Jay Galindo for giving us a warning about Thunderbolts and the spoilers tomorrow. Like, you know,
Yes,
this guy's not only looking at our Kagemusha review, but also looking forward and helping us with future MCU
Get
movies.
you a community member that can do both. Is
both,
what I say. They
absolutely.
are a member of our community, as should you be if you're watching this video. Go ahead and
Yeah.
join the Discord server down in the
Letter
description.
description.
Down in
And
the
write a
description.
comment. I mean, if you write a comment, you're in. That's how it works.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a
That
fair
is a good
point.
point.
Mhm.
Let's dive in here. Talk about Under the Son of Satan. Tanner, do us a favor and recount the plot of this movie. Familiarize ourselves, because maybe I'll venture a guess here that our audience has not seen this film, nor have they heard of it. So what do we need to know before we discuss?
Well, Under the Son of Satan is a film that is set in the French countryside. I believe it's like the 1920s. And we are following a newly appointed Catholic priest named Father D'Ossignon. He is portrayed by, of course, Gerard Depardieu.
D'Ossignon.
Thank you. Oh, I guess it is probably French, so it's probably something crazy.
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
probably French.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that his name is probably French.
Oh, no, it's Donison. We were neither of us were right. We both missed. D-O-S-S.
D-O-N-N.
I-S-S-A-N.
It's like,
Wait,
it's
but-
like
well, no, but
Donison, like the car brand.
The letterboxed plot description spells it differently. There's a G in there.
Oh,
Weird.
what the hell?
What the?
What the
Anyway,
hell?
probably Dawson. Anyway, he's a young priest. He's having a crisis of faith. He's like, "Hey, I don't know if I'm cut out for this." And then the older priest that he's working under is like, "Hey, buddy, don't worry about it. But also, if you want to change jobs, don't worry about it." He's like, "I'm gonna go out to a different church," and he's like, "Okay, do that." And then he goes out, and then he runs into who else? It's Satan. Satan in the form of just
Yikes.
a guy. And Satan is like, "Hey, you should like
Stranger danger.
turn away from God and like be a cool Satan loving guy. Love me." And Father Dawson is like, "I don't think I want to do that." And he's like, "Well, guess what? You have the ability to see people sin. Bang! Now you can see people sin." And then he meets up with a young girl who she wants to escape her young provincial town, and she ends up killing a guy accidentally. And he's like, Father Dawson is like, "Hey, you killed somebody, and you got a rough life ahead of you." And she's like, "Shut up!" And then she kills herself. And then he's sort of burdened by the fact that he has to see all these people sin. He resurrects a guy, and then he's like, "Man, this is a real tough time that I'm having. And the world basically belongs to Satan." And then he also dies
Yeah, after being tortured by Satan.
after being
This
tortured
movie.
by Satan. Yes.
It's not as exciting as it sounds.
There,
Mm,
yeah.
Well,
Abram,
here's one interesting thing.
What's that?
Tanner did neglect to mention, I think, the most interesting plot element of the movie is
What's
that this young girl who ends up committing suicide is like she's sleeping with two like married adults.
Yes,
and she's
yes.
pregnant, and she's like
And she's 16.
manipulating them, and she's 16. Like there's this whole thing going on there, and you didn't mention that part. I think that's the most interesting
Yeah.
element of the movie. But Abram, you make a good point, and the way he puts it, I would watch that movie.
Well,
What do you
you
think?
know what? You asked me to recount the events of the movie, and I did. Like,
Yeah,
those,
you bring
none
the
of those
energy.
things not happen in the movie.
Oh yeah,
Mm,
Yeah.
true.
So, Abram, you were about to give a thought, but you held back. Now it's time. Give us your thinking on All Under the Sun of Satan.
Give us this day your daily thought.
Ooh, that's good. I like that.
Whoa. I don't know. I think that this is a very awkward film. I feel like it operates for me in two realms that feel like they're in perfect contradiction with each other. On one hand, I think it is a very overt and unsubtle film, but I think in others it's quite inscrutable. And to me, the sort of result of that contradiction is just kind of, I don't know, it's just sort of an awkward watch. I think it's beautiful. I think it's clearly got a lot of ideas that it wants to chew on. But I just don't think, because of the way we have this plot that is both propulsive and has a habit to drag, I just find it very middle of the road. I think when I think about all of its sort of high thematic ambitions and then the awkwardness of its plot, the things that feel like the top of the line bullet points, here's what this movie is trying to say, versus the amount of you would assume like religious reverence and ambiguity and wonder that a narrative is trying to have. It just, none of it quite works for me. It doesn't quite click together. I think Under the Son of Satan is okay.
Tucker, agree, disagree?
Okay. I do disagree actually, because I strongly dislike this movie. I mean, I think there is very, very little that I actually appreciate about this movie, and that isn't to say that it isn't committed to its own style, doesn't have its own thoughts to ponder, and isn't like with internally coherent. I think it's got its own thing going on, but I am not into whatever that thing is. There's sometimes when I watch a movie and I feel it slipping away from me as it's going, and as things continue happening, I'm like, nope, okay, don't care about this, don't care about this, don't care about this, and unfortunately, that's Under the Son of Satan for me. We compare it most strongly to another movie we reviewed here on Quest, which is Hamlet. I called it Camlet, but spelled Cammeslet in our group chat earlier.
Oh,
It's
that's
like the
what
Cam
that
Hamlet.
is.
You just had
Yeah.
zero
I
idea.
didn't get that.
No, of
it
course,
went
of
over
course. That's why
all three
I
of
wanted
our
to describe it here today.
I see.
But Hamlet, the Best Picture winning film, is one of my least favorite movies of all time. And I had a very tough time discussing it because I was viscerally very against it artistically. And I feel quite the same here. And it's because even though I think I could be interested in the sort of pair of characters that this movie ends up following, I am not at face value against watching a film or enjoying a film that is tackling themes of really religiosity and struggling with your religion. These are things that I could be interested in, but I feel like this movie it's frankly for me, and if you watch the show, you know this is not a compliment from my eyes. This film is way too poetic. These characters speak in riddles and rhymes, and it feels like they're
Tucker,
reading
That's
from a.
that's called
What?
French. They speak in French.
Oh, I
It's like-
see.
I mean, well, I certainly don't think it helps me to understand what these characters are expressing.
Yeah,
when I'm
certainly.
then also another layer removed because I'm not understanding their like actual words they're saying. I have to read translation. I don't know how accurate the translation is, that kind of thing. But what it leaves me with is very, very little. I felt so confused for so much of this movie. The things that happen are pretty straightforward, but then the characters continue to like stand in a hallway and talk about it for like 20 minutes anytime anything of repute happens. And I just found that like intensely boring, intensely uninteresting. I don't think that our main character is frankly that well acted or that interesting. It's just a total nosedive for me. I think this is my least favorite movie we've watched for the Cannes Film Festival here.
I see.
Dang, he's showing the scorecard a little early there. Oh,
Uh-oh.
Oh well.
What do I have at the bottom? I want to see if it's actually worth it.
Yeah.
Tanner, you want to go or shall I? I got some thoughts.
Go for it, Timo.
Okay. I think I am pretty much in agreement with Abram, although I do harbor some of Tucker's feelings about this film. It was interesting for me at the start and steadily became less and less interesting. And I'm going to blame a big part of it on the religiosity of this film and my lack of spiritualism and religiosity. I don't really connect with our characters because the crisis of faith and the struggles and the overzealousness or the lack of zealotry, those don't play on me at an emotional level, and
Yeah.
it's and to I don't necessarily blame the film for this. I actually blame my own lack of life experience and whether I'm interested to have that, maybe not, but it's not there. And so this film, while it has some interesting characters and strange plot lines, I think is very well shot and is Tucker's distracting me with his cat. The lighting
Sitting on my computer.
is really beautiful. Is very like really awesome chiaroscuro lighting for a lot of it. But I was confused and bored. I don't think to the extent that Tucker was. I wouldn't say it was a visceral experience for me. It was a numbing experience, but not one that like
Sure.
made me want to crawl out of my skin or whatever. I just kind of thought that I didn't get it, and then I did get it, and it was unsubstantial.
I see.
Yeah, Tanner, you're the last one. What do you think?
Yeah. I actually am jealous that Abram got to use the word inscrutable before I was able to get it out.
It's a very good
because that
word.
was the word that was really coming to mind.
Thesaurus.com, inscrutable.
Yeah. But no, I think it's also, it is sort of inscrutable in that way, in its own way, I guess I should say. It's obviously quite a cold and distancing film, which seems like it impacted many of our viewings of this film. It's also very dense in terms of its dialogue sequences, as has already been mentioned. I mean, I was trying to take notes on the things that people were saying, and they were just, and it's a subtitled film, so I was like, guys, just stop talking for a second. I need to write stuff, because my laptop is a ways away as I have it plugged into the TV, so I can't just pause it or whatever. But with that in mind, I was trying to pause and write things down because I do find this film interesting. And it is one of the few times that I especially have gone back and like rewatched sections of it. I watched it for the first time last night, and then today rewatched sections of it to try and parse out more, sort of soak in a lot of what is being said here. Because yeah, I mean, it is all of those things that I said. It's cold, it's distancing, it's dense, it's verbose, it's all of these things. But I also think that, and I don't think that this is certainly something that's going to be denied, that it has a lot of ideas and it's trying to impart something weighty and I even think pessimistic about spirituality and religion, which divided audiences. As I learned, this film was booed when it premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, and then went on to go win the top prize. Though you hear that about every so often about films. I'd like to see how many of them were booed, but I don't know. I think it's interesting. And I think it's honestly pretty good. Is kind of what my thoughts are on it, but I'd like to talk about it more, obviously.
Tucker, given that you didn't like this film at all, where do we begin the discussion on it?
I do want to start in a positive area, which is that I think that the ostensibly female main character of this film, Mouchette, portrayed by Sandrine Bonnier, who I kept looking at her face. I'm like,
yeah. What do you recognize her from?
I've seen this face.
What do you recognize her from?
She's much older. She's in Agnes Varda's Vagabond, which I saw years ago. But she has such a striking face. I think she's easily the best part of this movie. I think she's the best performance. I think her character is the most interesting. I think that her struggles and the way that she portrays herself around other people is very, very compelling. And I'm just so curious to learn more about this character. And so that's my first and honestly probably only praise of this movie. But I thought she was really fascinating, and I thought that the actress did an excellent job. And then of course, the movie kind of drops her about halfway through. Not only because about 2/3 of the way through she ends up committing suicide, but about halfway through we just totally cold commit to following the father for the rest. I'm like, no, I thought this was going to be like more of like a dual narrative, a dual protagonist narrative. Like I want to see them play off each other more. I want to see how his influence impacts her life. Of course, we see how that happens, but it comes to such an abrupt end that I feel like there's so much missed opportunity there, because that I think would have grounded this film so much more to me in terms of the themes and the relatability for its religiosity. Not because I am a underage pregnant woman. On that level, I'm not going to be able to relate to her, or that I'm even religious myself. But this movie talks about these religious themes in such high, vague regard, mostly between priests and bishops and people that are already fully familiar with it, that I wanted to see the priest characters, the more religious characters, have to explain their thoughts on religiosity and their beliefs to someone who isn't part of that internal clergy. And so we have this one scene between the two of them, and they are battle of the witsing these like ridiculous poetic phrases, and I'm like, oh my god! And I'm just sitting there, but I'm like, okay, at least then they'll meet back up again, and we'll see how this kind of like impacts each character. Maybe he'll have something to learn, she'll have something to learn, but then they never meet again, and she dies, and I'm like, man, I thought you were going somewhere with this, and it just feels like the movie's leading somewhere, and then it just totally drops it. And I think that last 40 minutes of the movie after she's died are just totally, completely uninteresting. I do not care about his plight. I don't think he's a particularly interesting character. And so divorced from the context of her, which is an interesting performance and an interesting character that I think could bring some a different energy to the movie, I think it completely loses steam.
Abram.
Yeah, so it's interesting because after the father encounters her, whom he encounters shortly after meeting Satan on the road, he's speaking to his mentor, the priest above him, and he mentions, I'm trying to recall it exactly. He's like, I came to understand the devil's power, and I think man's desire is what he said. But it's interesting because I agree with you in large part, Tucker. It feels like she's in the narrative only insofar as to ostensibly be like a hat trick of deadly sins.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
she's like the anti-pope.
Think about the order in which she's introduced. Like we spend a lot of time with Don Nissan before we Dawson, right?
No. Yes.
Donison.
Yeah. We spent a lot of time with him, just like 20, 30 minutes at the beginning of the movie before we cut over, and then spent a bunch of time with Mouchette. So it's something I picked up on too, Abram, that she really appears to be this, like, all of sin put together in one character. And yet, I don't think the film is drawing that conclusion about her at all. Like, she is a much more fleshed out individual as we move forward, but her initial presentation and where I thought we were going to go with the film was as like a foil type situation where we have one character, the very pious character, and the very unpious character, and they have to see each other. So it's an interesting diversion that the film takes to think about other issues. It's not concerned with their relation and the way that they that Donison helps her come about to a piousness.
Right.
Which is, I think we were misled by Letterboxd description of this movie that says a priest struggle. He doesn't even say that Satan tempts Father Dawson, who is trying to save the soul of a young girl who killed one of her lovers. And with that description, we're like, that sounds kind of interesting. And again, the fact that she kills the guy, the fact that she's underage and this is a lover and there's pregnancy and all that, and there's these two lovers. I'm like, okay, I'll watch that movie. But the movie's, honest to God, really not concerned with that after like the first 35 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is where it gets tricky, and to me, this is where the both like overt and like postulating nature of the film and its more inscrutable dimensions come into direct conversation. Because in amongst them sort of trading barbs when they finally meet, I think the thing that interests me most in the conversation is this idea that the father has, that the sins that she is committing are
Mhm.
not unique to her. They're in some way intrinsic and passed along from her ancestors. And the film is certainly interested not only in like the archetypal religious idea of original sin, but I think it's also very interested in this idea of sin as just an understood, sin and evil as understood and
Yeah,
intrinsic elements of culture.
yeah, parts of the world certainly. This is present from like the very first conversation that he has with his priestly mentor, whose name is of course Manu Segre, who is portrayed by Maurice Pialat, the director of the film, is in the film as well, in that role. But yeah, certainly he that I mean it's a theme and an idea. It's something that is explored, especially in the latter 40 minutes of this film, um, when Donison is saying that, like, hey man, like, I'm pretty sure that, like, Satan runs all this shit, basically. We are in Satan's world. His grip is what is driving the cultural force, the societies that we live in. The powers that be, that we understand them, is not God. God is, in the film especially, God and his presence is talked about in a very like much more ethereal way than the powers of Satan, the powers of evil in the world. But it's not like, oh, the world is coming to an end, hellfire and brimstone because Satan rules everything. It's, I mean, especially from that older priest character, is kind of like, we do what we can, you know, but you know, our understanding of the religious battle, the battle of wills between good and evil, is far more advanced than that of everybody else. And they come to us, we do what we can to forgive their sins, and then they leave. It's a like realist slash pessimistic take on like the eternal battle of evil versus good in the world.
Your point
There's
about
also
I just wanted to note about the
yeah.
physicality of Satan, like that he literally shows up. God
Yep.
doesn't show up. God doesn't make
Nope.
himself known. Satan, he's there. He's pretty out and about of who he is. Donison's like, oh, he's like, no, Satan, stay away. He calls him by
Mhm.
name. And so you connected a little bit there in my mind, Tanner. That the role of God versus the role of Satan in our lives is a big theme of this film, and what
Mhm.
it, I think, is trying to examine. I don't know though how Satan connects to Mouchette as a character. Like that's we have these through lines and we have these things that I think are similar, right? Like the way Mouchette acts, her archetype is supposed to be linked with Satan and evil and bad. Adultery is a sin and whatnot. But like
Mhm.
how I like the muddiness of the scene between Satan and Donison does not allow me to connect Mouchette with Satan, but I
So
want to.
here's what I would say on that front. It goes back to directly what Abram started the whole tangent that we're on right now, is that like her sins are not major. You know, they are
Mhm.
not like Mouchette is not some weapon
Even
of evil in the
even the
world
murder
necessarily.
that she commits, multiple
It's
people
brushed off.
they write it off as like
Yeah.
animals do this all the time and God doesn't really punish them.
Even like, you know, even like the wealthier guy that she talked to is like, well, sure, you murder this guy, but
Which
in the
I actually
realm
really
of
like.
man, the realm of law, like, can't prove it. Well, I already ruled it as a suicide, so I guess you're off the hook. Slash, I don't believe you.
Yeah,
It's
Von
a
Ware
really interesting dynamic
kills it
there.
in that scene.
Yeah.
I mean, I just to step aside from the tangent and go to a
Yeah.
different one.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
scene
yeah.
that you're talking about, wherein I think the Mouchette's realization that she gets away with this, that she does this
Uh-huh.
act, and that she's not gonna be punished by the world for it, like that the justice system and the courts or whatever aren't gonna come after her, and that nobody else is either. And that moment where she screams and then we cut away from the scene was like I could see it in her face the 2 moments before she screamed and then she did, and it was like it was chills.
No,
I thought it was
Scrimp did. Yeah, Scrimp would because it dream and dreamt, so Scream must be Scrimp.
yeah.
Scream
I
must
mean,
be
it's how
Scrimp.
all these
Yeah.
romance languages work.
What
Uh-huh.
about Krempt?
Yeah. Sorry.
Abram.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, part of the film's issue is that I feel like it sacrifices novelty for meaning. After she commits suicide, because I think that Mouchette is what is who provides a lot of the intrigue of the narrative, as Tucker was saying.
Yeah.
And I think that the film sort of views her, and I've used this analogy recently, but that's like the booster rocket to get up into the higher heavens of ideas of this narrative, right?
Sure. Okay.
Because after she dies, yes, we're dealing with an exorcism, but it is largely a
Kinda.
yeah, it's a significantly less propulsive, significantly less directly confrontational, visceral, interesting
Mhm.
portion of the narrative.
Yep.
But it's where it becomes very much ponderous. Now, that's not to say that it wasn't ponderous to that point.
Yeah.
But I think that when we sort of lose the novelty of the narrative and we're left with these characters who we don't really connect to, and the one that we all find a lot of intrigue in has committed suicide, I think you're left with a latter third of the film that's just not as compelling to watch. I mean, I have to say, just on a screenwriting level, it is interesting to have Mouchette commit suicide. I think that's an interesting and bold choice, and I think it further reasserts this general nihilistic undercurrent throughout the narrative, which is interesting for a spiritual film, particularly one wherein we save a boy from the clutches of death and his meningitis-induced paralysis.
Mhm.
But the film is not really interested in giving you any sort of like respite or like feeling of holy reverie. And I think that when you're in that mode and the plot feels like it's lost a lot of the novelty, I think the film just sort of is weakened, which is frustrating because I think that there's some interesting stylistic moves after her death that are interesting. Like when she appears to him as like an apparition for
Yeah.
a moment, or when we hear these really distorted, like animalistic sounds outside the home of the kid who has been gripped by the paralysis, whether it's just farm animals. My interpretation as a viewer is that the way they were pitched, I'm like, this is a sort of a satanic noise. This is
Well,
like
and they
a-
weren't placed earlier in the scene. They don't change
Yeah.
location, and yet the sounds pipe up and level.
And I just think that that stuff is cool, but ultimately what we're left with is this sort of desolation that disconnects me from the narrative, and I think makes it hard for me, as you were saying, Timo, to really draw any kind of conclusion about how
Yeah.
these plot threads are supposed to intersect.
Yeah, because I agree about the making it very difficult to draw any kind of conclusion, or for me, frankly, for like much thematic value out of this film. Because in order to draw a conclusion, I do feel it's very important to feel connected. Before you're able to complete it, I think you need to have some sort of basis. And the problem is that, yes, Abram, you're right. This movie is ponderous all the way through, but the ponderous scenes, which we start with Donison talking to the other priest about his crisis of faith. I'm like, okay, I've seen this before, but fine. Like, I get this kind of conversation. You got to establish this character, and then we get, I think, equally ponderous in terms of their like flowery writing, but much more interpersonally interesting conversations between Mouchette and both of her lovers. I think those are the best scenes in the movie. But as soon as she dies, and we've left Donison to his own devices, even largely divorced from the other priest, so I don't think it's particularly interesting, but at least we know they know each other. He is really just having these long, flowery, ponderous conversations with people we do not know at all. He is other than Satan, there's like this other
We're very
horse,
familiar with
whatever
here
guy.
at BLB. We are very
So
familiar.
So true. There's this other horse ridery guy that they like walk and talk for
the
a
guy
while.
that
I'm like,
the guy that finds him passed
yeah,
out.
and I'm like, okay, that's not particularly interesting. I don't know who this guy is, and I don't think it adds too much meaning. There's the the father of the dying kid. I'm like, all right,
Mhm.
don't know you, don't really care. There's this other random priest, don't know you, don't really care. There's like sick women and all these people coming up to him. I'm like, don't know you, don't really care. And so this movie feels so lopsided when it's trying to really slow down and ponder what's going on and what's the impact on this guy, I don't really feel like he's expressing a lot of his thoughts, but he's not expressing them to the people he has any connection to. So it feels so one-sided. This movie's conversations feel like just one guy monologuing to like one-note characters, and I'm like, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to get from this, because I also don't think that, I mean, his conflict is pretty straightforward in that he's having a crisis of faith and discovering Satan, but otherwise, what do we know about his personality or his history or these things? Like, he is a very ungrounded, unmotivated character, largely outside of this one religious crisis. And so when we get him having this crisis and pondering these deep things, I'm like, I don't know. I don't really know what you think about these things. You're just saying a lot of fluff that is related to this struggle you're going through.
Tucker, I think a lot of what you said there is pretty interesting, and I want to talk about Donison as a character, because you say things that I'm like, yes, correct, but like that is like his character arc. Like,
Sure.
he doesn't have a motivation. Correct. Like, that is his crisis of faith. It's not so much that like he doesn't believe in God or anything like that. Not in the ways that we typically associate having a crisis of faith, like in a character like we have seen in previous films in this series or other series perhaps. But there's more about like, I don't know, like, is this the best use for me? Am I the best, mouthpiece for God? And like, am I presenting myself honestly before these people who are confessing their sins to me? Like, is all of this worthwhile? All of that kind of thing. His belief in God as a concept, or as an omnipotent figure, is never called into question. It is his motivation from that very first scene that is called into question. That like, is this the path for him? Should he go do something else? Can he go do something else? Are his gifts, are his talents aligned with priesthood, or are they aligned with something else? And then his mentor is very much like, listen, those other guys, back at the monastery or wherever priests are trained at, like, they didn't see the talents that you have, but I do. I know that you are cut out for this, but like, if your heart's not in it, then your heart's not in it. And then that continued, once we learn that he has been given this ability to see the sin of other people, basically see their souls, weigh their souls in his own eyes. It's pretty interesting to me, at least, though it's not filmically communicated in any way, shape, or form. It is basically just stated as a fact, and now he can sort of weigh these people's the weights of their sins and so on and so forth.
Yeah. But really, what does he do with that?
Well, what do any of us do with that?
Yeah, I think the film intentionally ellipses that. We are given the evidence of the effects. He shows up in the village to go help the sick family, and he's mobbed. He's treated very saintly.
That's what I mean.
He's like, the effects of him being able to read people's sins is felt with Mouchette. Maybe that's the connection right there. Is that him being able to read the sin, leads him
that
to
whole monologue that he goes on about like the weight of her sin and how it's pretty minuscule is kind of like the clue in, I think. And really the only time in the film, which makes sense because it's the two characters that we know the most, the only time in the film that he really like discusses the import of someone's sin with them.
And the conclusion that our other characters draw, that Manu Segrai comes to, is that he went too far, that the result of Mouchette killing herself is because Donison revealed too much and spoke, at least from my understanding. I think that some of these scenes, like, I don't have very good grasp on, so I am just working off of my own interpretation of what I thought happened. I was paying attention, but the way that Donison dies also, and the question he asks of God, I think plays into this too. He asks about, do I have purpose left in the world? And the answer is no, he doesn't. And that's after the miracle. I don't exactly part of a little disconnect for me is that the time skips in this film and the when we
Sure.
we are
Sure.
in one scene, and if scenes are continuous with one another is very ambiguous to me.
It's
And
very fluid and like
like
ambiguous
at
in like
times we time jump
how
quite a bit, and at other times
mhm.
we're completely continuous, and so it's like a little,
Yeah.
it leaves me a little confused. But him coming from performing the miracle, resurrecting this child and then going and dying is like, I see the complete through line of him having completed his purpose. Giving that child life was what he was maybe predestined to do. I think this film kind of talks about a little bit of a predestination.
Oh
Like,
sure,
are
yeah.
are you set in what, if is did God choose what you're gonna do 6 months before you were born, or do you choose it? And I think this film is coming down on the line of that you don't really choose. You're called to do things, and you've got to follow through with it, um, even if it's very painful for you or painful for others.
Well, there's an interesting line from the mentor, whose name I will not attempt, who who, who has this aside about how this world isn't, is no place for somebody trying to do priestly good. And it's interesting, I think, this sort of hostility that exists in the narrative towards our principal character's motivations, and then the idea that we last see him pale and dead as the narrative ends.
Mhm.
Even the miracle seems quite unremarkable. It's not as though the kid springs back to life. He's sort of, his eyes flicker and then he's dropped limp back onto the bed. I think that the film, to me, where it's almost strongest is in how it communicates a sort of darkness and apathy through action and through mood. I think a lot
And
about the
lighting
lighting,
too.
and you mentioned the yes, you mentioned the lighting at the beginning, Timo, and I certainly agree. And I was taken by a number of shots where we will see Donison in the background, and sort of the midground is obscured in dark shadow, and maybe there's just a sliver of moonlight through a window on his face. I think this is the moment I'm thinking of, is actually, if I remember correctly, the mother with the miracleized child in the foreground,
Yeah.
and then
You
he's in
can
the
barely
background.
just see his face.
You just see a little bit of his face, and this sort of
Yeah.
notion that his light is being enveloped in the darkness. To me, again, it returns to this contradiction at the heart of the film. Is it actually that deep, or is it not? Because I think you can look at this film, for me, and simply say, look, the world's pretty fucked up, man. And even if you save
I agree
a
that the world
child,
is run by Satan. I mean, it totally makes sense. Yes, bad shit
yeah.
happens all the time.
And I think that's just why it's hard to really nail down the film, because for as much as I think we can find depth, I think if you just simply just look at the mise en scène, to me it just feels it feels on the surface. But again, I have to share the same bias that you have, Timo. I'm not a spiritual person in any direction, really.
Yeah.
And so I think it's hard for me to buy into the stakes of the world being run by Satan, because like the Nintendo Switch 2 comes out in a month. If this is the world Satan runs, then I'm okay with it,
This
Sure.
guy, this character, look at this guy go. Look at him say the
yeah.
things he's saying.
You derailed. I had a great thought just then about your point about it being kind of ambiguous in its lofty thematic ideas does make me imagine. Let's put myself in the other shoe. Let's think about it from the side of faithful. Let's think about what it would be like to watch this movie, believing all the way in God and choosing. I think about this moment from Conclave, topical movie, right? In which one of the main guys was like, if we don't have any doubt, we don't have any faith, because then there's no room to truly believe in something without evidence if you have all the evidence. And so to take that idea and apply it to this film, that like the faith of our characters and maybe the faith of our hypothetical viewer that we're living in right now, that they need there to be some sort of unexplainability to it, that it just isn't possible to grasp all the way,
Sure.
but that being faithful allows you, right, to believe wholeheartedly in it and to understand it in your own way. Am I like this? No, I'm not. So I can't quite get there, but I can imagine it, right?
Yeah.
I can do this like
Sure.
intellectual exercise, and so I don't think it gets me all the way to this kind of emotional place of where faith lies in a person, but like that is something that I believe affects your viewing experience with this movie, like how your
Yeah.
degree of piety. Like, if you're really faithful, I
Sure.
think this movie will have a very different effect on you.
Yeah.
So
It's.
go ahead, Tucker.
I think it's interesting because if we're going to try to mental exercise and think of, if you're watching this as someone who has quite a bit of faith and you see the results of faith in this movie,
hmm
I wonder how that would make you feel, how that would impact you, because as Tanner has mentioned, this is a very nihilistic movie, and frankly, the character that we watch struggle with his faith and only come to true faith on occasion, like when he's resurrecting the child and like when he is resisting Satan's struggle, right? I feel like those are like the most outwardly faithful moments of the
hmm
movie where he's like more confident in his the moves that he's making.
Hmm.
Uh, Other than that, it's pretty much like, you know, he uses his faith, he tries the ability he's been given, the supernatural ability, ends up with the girl dead instead of like coming to uh coming to Christ or whatever. And other than that, you know, we see a lot of people like come to him for advice or for faith training, priestly stuff. But we never actually really see any of that happen. And so this movie is like perspective on faith. I find like weirdly shaky because our only character that we like are following has a very shaky interpretation of what's going on. That is only confident in certain moments, but then his actions don't really support that. If you are faithful, that things will turn out even remotely good. I mean, he just kind of passes away in the confession booth, and you know, a couple characters die, and like, so it's just like I really am confused on what this movie's perspective is on faith because it's so nihilistic.
I mean, it's an interesting
I-
prospect. Just
I don't really
because-
have a good answer for that. I don't
No,
know
yeah,
what
I
its
don't either.
perspective is on faith with its nihilism too.
You go. Sorry, go
Well,
ahead, Dagon.
I'm curious if there's supposed to be a dimension of martyrdom to his character,
I think there is.
and
Yeah, sure.
I think
Especially at the
that
end.
yeah, I mean, and in some ways, right? Like, if you construct a world that is this intrinsically evil, the martyrdom of Donison and what he puts himself through is deeply spiritual.
Mhm.
And I think that
What about the self harm that he does when he whips himself with the chain?
Well, we all participate in a little bit of self-flagellation, don't we, gentlemen?
and I mean, it seems like that to me also. I'm not so sure I would read Donison's character as somebody who is ever wavering in his faith. I think that it's more so, in my view, that he's been confronted with this sort of extra sense that he doesn't know that he's supposed to have, and that runs afoul of sort of the hierarchy of the church. And I think that the structures
Yes.
of religion are
Yeah.
also interrogated in this film as we sort of
Absolutely,
paint.
they are.
Yeah, as we
Our
paint
one scene
Donison.
with the bishop.
Mhm.
Yeah. Donison is this character that sort of exists outside of that context. And we learn, again, in a scene that's not particularly good because it's a lot of telling, but when Segras returns at the end of the narrative and he's talking to the woman that sort of upkeeps the home that Donison is staying in, and she's recounting the ways he goes out and helps the people build, and he's using his hands and he's shoulder to shoulder with them. I think that the film is interested in this resilient character, this character who is self-flagellating, who turns to God in at the end of his life, who does in a moment of reverence try to take Mouchette to be reclaimed and have her body restored after she commits suicide. I think that his he's being burdened with an extra responsibility on top of his faith. So I guess I would read his character also through the lens of martyrdom, which does, I think, give the film not a happy sensibility, but I think that there's a reaffirmation of the importance of faith and critique of the structures around Denison that I think is Donison that is positive of faith. I don't think this is a nihilistic and secular narrative.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
So it's nihilistic and pious, I think, is the thing. It's not secular by any means. It has
No.
sort of a singular perspective that is very obviously provocative and drew a lot of ire when it was released, I'm sure, which is that like Donison, like in the scene where he revives this boy, is like challenging God, which is something that is, if you are thinking of, if you read the Bible, if you talk to people about religion, is like something that you are not supposed to do.
No.
Because I'm sure this has come up. We've covered plenty of films that deal with religion and like backgrounds and stuff like that. But like you in these discussions, I think it's also important to note that this is a distinctly Catholic movie. I'm not sure what you guys' religious backgrounds are, if any.
Get your Protestant ass out of here.
Exactly. Forced to go to Protestant church services at least twice a week for most of my childhood. Hashtag Calvinist or hashtag John Calvin, hashtag Martin Luther.
Hashtag Martin Luther, baby.
The difference that you hear about, because you're raised in a town with mixed faiths and everything like that. There's a Catholic church where I grew up, and there are many Protestant churches as well. So the question often comes up is like, oh well, what is the difference between these two lines of faith? And kind of the main thing that they keep going back to is that Protestantism is different than Catholicism in that it is focused on the individual journey with God, your walk with God, your journey, your conversations with him, whereas Catholicism is obviously more about the structure of it all, the mouthpiece, the ceremony of going to confession and going to service that for, especially still in the 1920s France, were given in Latin. We're not given in the language, the native tongue of the people listening to them. That's kind of like what Catholicism's whole deal was and why Martin Luther got pissed off at him in the first place. So Abram is totally right when he says that the structure of this is being interrogated, the structure of the church. But like the bishop and the mentor priest sort of are baffled by Donison in his like old school style of doing things. When he brings Mouchette to the altar, like lay her out before God in an effort to revive her, they're like, "What the hell are you doing, man? We don't do that anymore. That doesn't work. Like we don't do that shit anymore." And when he's going out and he's like being with the community, he's building things with his hands. It's a very old school way of proselytizing, if I may, even akin to that of the original proselytizer, little guy I know by Jesus Christ.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Exactly. Who was, a carpenter, a fisher of men, etc., etc. And, might I add, very famously had a conversation with the devil, with Satan in the desert as Satan was trying to lure him in with all of these these niceties, these things that Jesus could have.
And they're
just the exact same thing he does with Donison.
They're both guys who got to walk a lot too.
They're both guys who got to walk a lot. That's true. I think Jesus had to walk a little bit more than 8 miles.
Yeah, but I mean, we all know that he went to India during the time he was missing and studied under the Buddhists.
Oh, I see. Sure. Tucker, what were you going to say?
I was going to make some sort of joke about Bailby being a spawn of Satan. I have no idea.
Oh, well, you know what? Fair enough. We already made the joke that we're very familiar with him, etc., etc. But no.
My deal with Satan was like, hey, you get me like 800 subscribers and I'll do whatever you want.
I'll be your guy.
Exactly.
I'm your man on the inside.
And he has not held up his end of the bargin, mind you. He
what
has
the
not.
hell, man?
Come on. But no, like just going back
Can't
to
trust that guy.
Exactly.
No way.
Where I started he holds up the boy and he's like, listen, God, show me who's stronger. Show me who has dominion over this world, you or him. Like, you are not supposed to do that, and yet he does. It is very provocative and evocative from that way of like, yes, Donison is talking with God, but like asking him, begging him to pay attention to people, to impart his will on the world, which is, very much the opposite from any way that anybody of any religious persuasion would say that God
And
interacts with the world.
Specifically,
It's
like anti-Catholic. I mean, the God only talks with the Pope, and so nobody's listening right now.
yeah,
Whoa.
true. No one's
Whoa,
minding
that
the
explains so much, dude.
But no, yeah, I mean,
Sinners came out, you know?
Well, yeah.
Whoa, exactly.
Whoa. Never let
But
that happen.
from that standpoint, I do find it like that's where I was really like, well, what are these people like saying about these priests like talking about God and everything like that, and how people are admiring Donison as a saint, as a man who can do these incredible things. Like, what are they saying to him? That's why I liked those sequences with him, where that is his very unique and singular crisis of faith, if we want to call it that. He is confronted with the harsh realities of what is going on here, and they are realities that are far different than anybody else, even his fellow priests, really understand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's one detail that I cut on to. Again, I found this movie very inscrutable, as the word we've used, and it meant that a lot of it was very tough for me to register what these characters were saying, to understand it on that level that you're talking, which I think is compelling. But again, through its writing style, it's very straightforward cinematography, and I think the performances, which outside of Mouchette, I don't think are particularly remarkable. I found the movie's themes and writing to be like, I couldn't understand them at all. But on the visual side, I just wanted to point this out. Mouchette, we talked about her not necessarily being like this inherent like spawn of Satan, whatever, even though she's is a sinner. There's one moment that I think is really interestingly paralleled, and kind of the only moments of like editing that like stuck out to me in this movie is when she's talking to the doctor, that is like the second lover that she goes to, who she confesses to. She like sticks out her hand and says, kiss my hand, and he won't do it. And then later on in the movie, when the bishop comes, the older priest kisses his hand.
Yeah, got kiss the ring, baby.
And I'm like, that one moment of like parallel action between the bishop character and Mouchette, I think there is something there. It's probably just like, a signification that she's not like the bishop. She's trying, I don't know, she's trying to fulfill that because she feels she's in charge, even though like maybe I guess
she is certainly trying to
be in charge.
She's certainly trying to express some sort of control, at least over her own life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is another thing that like the kissing of the hand is a power thing, right?
Yeah, of course.
Like,
yeah,
you are below me, you kiss my hand. I am in charge of the situation. Though he doesn't give in, he doesn't do that, but she tries to have it happen. I don't know. I thought that was a interesting detail that adds a little bit of texture. But again, for me, there were very few and far between of those in the film. But that one really stuck out.
One of the character traits that that Donison pointed out in Mouchette was that she has this need to coerce and inspire fear in the men that she's around, that she needs them to fear her and what she can do. And we see that she is overt about it with the doctor or the deputy character. She asks him bluntly many times, do you fear me? Do you fear me? And I think she asks that of Donison too, right? When they come and talk to each other, do you fear me? And he's like, no. So something I thought of just then that it connects in there somewhere, but dear viewer, got to figure out how to fit that puzzle piece in.
Oh, I see. Well, challenge for them.
We can't do all the work.
I can't just give out all the answers here. Come on,
Timo is like God, and you are, or no, the viewer is God, and Timo is the clergy or
kiss
whatever.
My non-existent ring.
He is challenging the viewer to do some work.
Kiss my ass.
Mm-hmm.
We got any final thoughts here? I think we're kind of seeming like we're wrapping up. Anything else y'all want to put in the pot here.
Oh gosh. Let me
You're
look
muted,
through
Aaron?
here.
Maybe? I don't hear anything from you, Aiden.
Oh.
Is it because you were
Uh-oh.
muted?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it was. There was some background noise. I was just
Oh,
going
I
to say
see.
I didn't have anything to say.
Oh, wow.
Well,
thank you for
You should have stayed
input.
muted
Yeah,
then.
No, yeah, I mean, like, all I want to say is that, like, I like Depardieu's performance as well. Like, it sort of ties back into what I was saying about him being very put upon the expectations that are of him, the fear that he carries with him, and the knowledge that he is burdened with. Essentially, I think a lot of that carries in his performance. I think you guys have already said it, so I don't really need for me to say it as well. But like, film looks beautiful. Like
Mhm.
the outdoor stuff, the interior stuff, the lighting especially is really something that's really evocative in the movie.
Back a nighttime scene that is clearly shot during the daytime, color corrected
But
for
boom.
night, and then we just have to believe that it's nighttime.
This is what I'm
Just
saying.
Bring that back. Stop
it
shooting
happened
frames full
recently.
of black.
It happened recently in some. No, I think I was just watching like an old movie again. I was just like, why don't they make night scenes blue anymore? I was watching. You know what I was watching? I was watching this movie called The Limey. I was
Yeah.
like, why don't they make night
Because-
scenes blue
because
anymore?
It's hubris and arrogance together. Great
Yeah, I
great
don't know.
sinners these
Sins.
movie
Some
makers are.
mortal
Wow.
sins. These
They-
mortal sins.
They just think they're too good. They think they're too good for Day for Night.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. That's
That's
what
a
I'm
great
gonna
movie,
say.
by the way. Is that a Palme d'Or winner?
Day for
Day
Night.
for Night? I don't think
for Night?
so.
God, I fucking love that movie. That's a movie about movies. Go watch Day for Night.
I
Yeah,
like movies
I mean,
about movies.
last thing I would say is, that thing of like when he challenges God for the last time. It's like, hey, listen, God, if I am useful, don't let me die. And then it hard cuts to him like walking about.
But-
He goes back to the church and he takes confession one last time, and that's when he dies. It's like,
Mhm.
well, is that all that God thinks that the priests are useful for, and how heartening or depressing is that they are sort of receptacles for you to confess your sins to? And then, like, is that what God sees the use of priests, or can they do more, or does he not want them to do more? And that is why Satan has sort of reclaimed or claimed dominion over the world, as Donison says.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Chew on that.
No.
Stick that in your
Let's-
pipe and smoke it. Why don't you?
Let's do
Okay, I chewed
some.
on it.
Let's do some scoring here, Tanner. While we
Oh,
think about the scores, do you
Yeah.
have any poem details?
Oh, I certainly have some poem details for you. Let's see. So in 1987, this was the sole winner of the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. I need to look up who this person was. I'm gonna look up who the jury president was. It was how do you guys
Yuri
pronounce
Gagarin? Oh my God.
how do you pronounce the name that's YVES? How do you guys think that would that would be?
Yves.
Yves? Okay,
Like
interesting.
Yves Saint Laurent, the
Uh-huh.
Like
the-
Yves Guillemot.
Yves
Equally relevant
Montand.
references.
Yves Montand was the jury president this year. He was an Italian-French actor and singer. Looks like he was in such classic films as Delusions of Grandeur, Let's Make Love, Manon of the Spring, Jean de Florette. I've heard of that one. That one's getting a Criterion release coming soon. Costa Gavras' Z he was in. So
Okay.
just a couple things he was
On
in.
the show, Casagavras.
Exactly. Also on the jury this year, a couple folks by the names of Danielle Heyman and Jeremy Thomas of the
Dude.
19 other classic folks.
yeah,
Folks.
we
them,
know
love
these
them.
folks. We love these
Uh-huh.
folks.
Of the 19 other films in competition, notable films included. Oh, looks like I only wrote down one here. It is Wim Wenders' Wings of Desire. was also in
Oh, come
competition this
on.
year.
That movie is ponderous and poetic to an extreme, but it's way better than this one.
You know?
Ah,
They
come
can't
on.
always get it right.
Come on. Wings of
They can't always get
Desire
it
is
right.
great. I really like that movie. And you get the same feeling. It's depressing. It's about God. It's about religion, but it's actually good.
Damn.
All right.
Damn.
Alrighty, okay. Oh, I gotta plug in my score, don't
Yeah,
I?
let's see.
Yeah,
Tucker,
do that.
will Tucker
Woo!
give this a 0 out of 0? Place your
No.
bets
Can he
now.
do that?
You
I mean,
could.
I guess I
You could.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do
It's on the range. It's on the scale.
It's on the scale. He's got the 0.01 slotted in here, ready to go.
that. No.
Shall we see in
If
3,
you
2?
gave a
Yes.
Abrams?
Sorry, I was just thinking, if you gave a film a 0, would that actually put it? How does that? How do
Yeah,
you?
it would calculate. Yeah,
Yeah, but that would
zero's
make
the number.
but it would make it a higher number, right? Or a lower
No,
number.
it'd still be it'd be dividing by 4 still.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
divide
yeah.
by 4.
And it would just be negative in billion infinity. Or whatever, 'cause-
If any of us really
Yeah.
want to tank a film on the list, just give it
Give
a
it a
0.
0.
It'll really tank it.
I guess saying that out loud, if you give the movie the lowest possible score, it will get a low score. And
I wonder what'll happen. Ooh.
We are not, mathematicians here on Quest, are
no,
we?
no, we're not. Let's do some math, however, and find out where this one goes. 3, 2, 1.
Now the computer
Go.
does that.
Okay. Oh my God, we have
Whoa.
a really famous number here. Actually, it's not famous at all. I don't know why I said that. It's
Oh,
4.8.
famous number.
What are you going on about?
Oh, the most well-known number, 4.8.
4.8.
4.
That's not-
I heard 4.8 had to set up like a.
Oh wait, that's pi.
No, it
I think
is.
it is absolutely not. 4.8, I heard, had to set up like a fake grocery store, so they could pretend to go grocery shopping normally without people having to
Yeah, really
without people
famous
recognizing
number.
them.
Okay. 4.8 is not a tie. It is going to go in between Robert Altman's MASH and The Go-Between. Spot number 40. Spot number 40 out of 44. So, yeah, there's only 4 films above it on the list.
Below it.
Below it. Yeah, I meant, I was looking down. There's only 4 films above it. Wow.
Oh gosh.
So there we have it. That's about it.
There it
Spot
is.
number 41, Under the Son of Satan.
Timo,
What's the
what's the
point
score
breakdown?
breakdown? What's the score breakdown, Timo?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. We do get to find out the answer to our question. Tucker gave it a 1.5. That's the lowest score we've seen on this list.
Wow.
Is it the
What's
lowest
that?
score out of all time? No, Tucker
Wait, is that-
gave
wait, is that not true,
Cavalcade
Timo?
a 0.5.
It's not the
Oh.
lowest on this list because I gave on The Silent World a 1.0.
Oh wow! Shit! Oh shit!
So we have to get to.
I gave Hamlet a 4.2.
I don't
What the
know.
hell?
Hey, maybe
We
you're
have
just
to-
feeling
Who
generous.
let me do
day.
that?
Okay, not quite the lowest score that a movie can get. We've
Uh-huh.
given them lower. A 0.5, I think, is the lowest score I see on the list.
Wow.
We already knew what happens if you gave it a 0, it turns out. Continuing on, 1.5 from Tucker. I gave it a 4.7. Abram gave it a 6.0, and Tanner gave it a 7.1. That's a big spread, so it seems to me that if you are an interested audience member, you just got to watch this for yourself and choose, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I got a
Yeah.
question, a point of order here. If you
Yeah.
so I clicked on the All Best Picture nominees 2021 2024 sheet. Why is there the poster for Big Mama's House?
That's because
Well,
it's
Big
the
Mama
Big
doc.
Mama
It's of course
document.
called the Big Mama doc.
Oh, some jokes that are for internal documents that I
Oh,
don't think
yeah.
we'll be releasing to the public. Too bad. Maybe if we get some super likes in the comments, like 20, 30 bucks, we'll put it out there.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, money.
Pretty good.
Let's go take
Let's
a
go.
little gander to our place of worship, the spin wheel.
Mhm. Yes, that's right. Our very own God who hath abandoned us.
Please come back, oh spin wheel.
Should I do this one in the hymnal format?
Yeah, I think you should. We need accompaniment from the other two.
Mm.
Oh my God! The light of the wheel is shining upon me.
Well, look, there is. Wheel, wheel, what's your deal? Give us a movie that makes us squeal. Is it on digital or is it on real wheel? What's your deal?
And the wheel's deal is number 57.
Number
That's the-
57.
Is that the oldest or the newest?
Oh, that
It's the
is
newest.
the newest film on the list. Does anyone want to take a guess? What is the newest Palme d'Or film that we have not discussed on this series, I should say?
Is it Nomadland?
It is not Nomadland. No, you gotta go a
Nomadland.
couple years later.
It's Triangle of Sadness?
It's Triangle
Oh,
of Sadness.
are you kidding? Wait, oh shit. Okay, so we're doing this again?
We're doing Triangle of Sadness again. Unless we don't want to. We do have a score from the 4 of us for Triangle of
No,
Sadness.
I mean, we didn't watch it that long ago, man.
It's
It's
not
not
years
how long
ago.
ago
It
was
was
it?
a couple of years.
Yeah.
I've seen it twice already.
Tucker, I've seen Triangle of Sadness 3 times. A movie that I don't like.
Wow.
What-
I mean, I
what
like
year
that
did
movie.
we
Like,
rate it?
I already know
year
what I
did we
think
rate
about it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Should we reveal what we gave it last time or
Say that for the episode?
Yeah.
I guess it's not really that big of a secret. You can go watch it. But
Yeah.
to be fair,
We have already rewatched films for this. We
Yeah.
literally
Yeah.
literally started this series with doing
We're
Parasite again.
the one we wanted to watch. Though.
Yeah,
But how many
yeah.
times did we do the movie with Pimp in it? What's it called?
Movie with Pimp?
What the fuck are you talking
Anatomy
about?
of a Fall. Yeah, we
Thank
did
you.
that one like 3
We
times,
did
didn't
twice.
we?
No, we did twice.
I
We were
think
going to do it.
I
Well,
think
technically 3 times, I guess.
we got to give
I
it
think-
another shot. We got to give
I
it
agree.
justice. Ruben Ostlund did make this movie, and so we need to watch it again and decide we're allowed to keep our thoughts the same. That's the
That's
best.
true. That's true. I should note that. Yeah, I was just wondering, have we rewatched a Best Picture winner to a Palme d'Or winner? We have already, right?
We did. That's what I'm saying.
No, just
Anatomy of a
Parasite.
Fall. We did.
Oh, Anatomy of a Fall. Yeah. Okay.
Which-
I
And
can't
Anatomy
make
of a
out
Fall
what
we
you said.
did in reverse order.
Yeah, and
Yeah, that
Parasite
That's
was in
true.
reverse order too.
That's true.
Hmm.
Well, there is
No.
one more on the list that we've covered on Best Picture winner quest that'll be covered here.
Marty.
Marty. Wait, no, actually two, I think, because I think the
What's the other one?
long weekend also won the Palme d'Or.
Oh,
The Lost
shit.
Weekend?
Lost Weekend,
Lost
yeah, sorry,
Weekend.
Yes. You know I love
It's a
that.
good movie.
I love that alcoholism movie.
Okay, well, fuck it, guys. Next week, Triangle of Sadness.
Will we be put back into the Triangle of Sadness, or will we find our way out into an undefined shape of joy and happiness? We'll just have to watch the movie and find out. I thank you all for joining me here to talk about Under the Son of Satan. We seem to have crawled our way out. I think we got out of the son
Mhm.
of Satan, and I don't know. We're in the sun. We're in the noon. No, the twilight
What the
of
fuck?
purgatory. How about that?
Whoa.
We've
'cause none of
washed
us
up
are
on a
believers,
beach
as
of a,
we've-
of a
we-
desert island. That's what we've washed up on.
Yeah, with some
Sure.
rich people. Triangle of Sadness. Let us know what you think about that one, as well as maybe if you watched this movie, maybe when it came out, maybe recently. Let us know what you thought, and stick around Backlot Banter for more fun movie content. That'll do it from us today. You know what I say? Stay cool, keep warm. Peace.
Peace.